welcome to another fabulous episode of Tickle.Life's podcast. And I'm super, super stoked to have my fabulous guest, and we're going to have some juicy conversations like we always do. For everybody who doesn't know who I am, I'm Gaia Morissette, your hostess with the mostest. And I'm going to allow my guest to pronounce her name so that I don't screw it up, as well as to give us just a little taste of who you are. And what you do in the world. And then at the end of the show, we'll go deeper into who you are and what you do and how you show up in the world after we find out your juicy story.
Sure. So my name is Yael Rosenstock Gonzalez, and I am a salsa dancer. I am a big dancer. I love that kind of stuff. And what I do in the world is I'm a sex educator, coach, author. I have a publishing company, and I'm a sex researcher.
Ooh. I'm excited. All right. So I always like to ask my guests something easy at the beginning. All right. So do you sleep naked or with pajamas?
I love pajamas, but I often just sleep naked, and it also is nice flow.
Nice. Are you a underwear wearer or a commando kind of?
I do wear underwear. I don't like to wash my clothing too frequently.
What personal adventure are you going to take us on today?
The first time, and actually only time, I've been to a kink sex party.
Ooh, all right. So, set the stage. How old are you?
I am, I think in my mid-20s, and I'm in Manhattan. My friend has bailed on me and has not shown up. And I started off by going to a brunch.
Okay, so did you know that this is what was going to happen?
Oh yeah, my friend and I had been like trying to find a kink party. We had literally shown up in Brooklyn like 2 weeks earlier to a building that was not the building that it was supposed to be, to a party that did not exist. I don't know how this happened, but we were just like, oh. So we were searching. I was wanting this to happen.
Okay, so you were searching. You were like hardcore, like this, we're going to find a party. Okay, so what happens?
So I show up to the munch, and it was like really sweet, right? You're just like in a diner, got some hot chocolate, whatever. And I went to the bathroom and connected with some folks that were in the munch because I was alone, right? And I think the youngest person around by probably a decade, if not two.
Yeah.
And so I found these two lovely women who I was like, would you mind adopting me as we go on to the party a part of this? Like, I am little and young, and and so these two fabulous women, I think one identified as sub, another one sub brat / switch.
Okay, so hold on. So we're gonna want to do for our audience. I'm gonna intervene a little bit in some of the terminology and things, just so that our audience have an idea of what we're talking about. So when you talked about a munch is the terminology for a group of kinky people to get together to get to know each other in a usually a vanilla, being like a public environment, and it's not overtly kink related, but everybody is there that is kinky. Okay, so that's what the munch is. All right. And then you were talking about identifying as a sub, which is the submissive side of the play world and the BDSM. And there's lots of different variations of that, but just so that you know that we're talking about submissive, not subjugation, not sub anything, right? Okay. And then what was the other term that you had used? Sorry.
Then brat, which is someone who is who is somewhat a submissive, but likes to get in trouble, likes to push back, wants to have that sort of power play, be one of contention.
Yes, that's my favorite kind of submissives. I like a reason to hit people.
And the last one was a switch. Right?
A
so
switch.
Someone who goes between the different power dynamics.
Beautiful. Okay, continue your story.
Excellent. And so we're in the bathroom. I got yes, of course we'll adopt you. Don't you worry, honey. And we head off. We head off to this sex party. It's an evening party. And I'd gotten my breasts painted that day. I'd gone to an event which I expected to be a nude event because it was body painting, and then everyone else was clothed, and I was like, the fuck, like, we're going to get my breast painted. So I took off my shirt and got that done. And so I was like, well, now I need to show everyone my breast.
Of course.
Because what? And so I ended up being, I think, the only person there who was bare-breasted, which got some attention. But we show up, and honestly, the way I can describe it is that it kind of felt like a low cost, low budget film. It was dark. It was
Yes.
kind of dingy. Like it just, it was, I'm sure that there are really a lot of great ones, but I went on a budget party and it was quite clear that I attended a budget friendly party.
Okay, so let's go backtrack a little bit before you go getting to the party. So why did you want to go to the party? What was your own experience in kink? Like up to this point, who are you that you want to go and explore this?
Yeah, so it took me a while to accept my kinky identity, to accept the fact that I am, excuse me, submissive brat. And I was excited that I had finally found, I felt like it contrasted in some way with my feminism, and I no longer feel that way. And so I was like, yeah, I want to be in this world. I want to get to know people. I need an entrance point, and I want to see what it looks like. So I'm not someone who's particularly interested in voyeurism. Like I don't like watching per se. I'm not interested in and having myself be watched, but I just wanted to get a feel of a scene. And so it seemed like a good way to do it was to go to a munch, ask my questions, and then check out a party.
Okay. All right. Okay. So you walk into the low budget play party and it's dingy and it's dark. And how many people are there?
Oh, I'm really bad with numbers, but like, let's say 100, right? There's like several rooms. There's a room where people are being tied up to the ceiling, and there's a room where folks are playing with like electricity and tickly things. And then there's a St. James cross. So like something that you can put people up on. And there was like a wall to, there's lots of things that you can do with your kinky and masochistic, sadistic selves in that room. And then I think there's also some space for like having sex, right? Some sort of different sexual acts that you want to engage in.
Okay. All right. So you go in, you start walking around. You've taken you've taken off. So when you walk in, do you immediately take off your top so you can like show your painted breasts? Like what happens? Like what's the transition? Okay.
I was wearing a button up quite intentionally. And so I just unbuttoned it and was like, hello world. And yeah, I like strutted my stuff with my two ladies with me.
Excellent.
I was very, interested in really emerging myself in.
So what do you see? What's the first thing you see?
Probably the first thing I saw was the St. James cross, like someone being flogged. So like hit with a whip while being restrained on a cross. And then like the on the right is immediately this beautiful, just like someone doing some really intricate rope work with someone being suspended. And yeah, I think those are probably the first two things that I witnessed in that space.
So how are you feeling? Like, how were you feeling in that moment? Were you excited? Were you freaked out? Were you like nervous? Were you like, what were the gamut of emotions that were going through as you were stepped into that space?
Excellent question. I have poor memory, but given my personality, I would say that I was pretty chill. I was just like, interesting. Like, I wonder if I'm going to want to play today, right? If I think that I went in with the intention of just watching and then choosing as it went along. And so I was just wanting to get a feel for what is it that people do in the wild, right? In the real world, but at a party, which is different from like at a home.
Okay. All right. So continue. What happens next?
So we walk around a bit. We participate in like this woman who's tied down and they're playing with like some electric stuff, but also with feathers. And so like it's a tickle torture, which she's obviously very much enjoying. So like a bunch of us gather feathers and we're like, oh, all over her. And then we walk over to the area that's like a gate. It's like a black gate with different lines. And, you really hold yourself against it. There aren't anything to tie you to it. And someone invites someone I'm with to be flogged or to be whipped. And so she agrees. And so me and the other woman are just like watching. And I'm getting nervous because she's making all sorts of terrible sounds. And I was like, is she okay? And it turned out she went into subspace, right? And so she was like gone. She comes back off that, and like that was our last conversation happened before she went on that wall, because she was just off in the air for the rest of the night.
And really, so for anybody who's listening, subspace is that deep trans space that you end up going into when you can really drop into surrendering to the experience of being submissive.
Mm-hmm. And this person, the dominant figure, he was talking about the fact that he had all these toys and he had dated someone who's vanilla, so not into kinky sex, and she had made him get rid of all of them. So he had come to this party with a remote control and a TV antenna, and so these were his like at-home props. And so that TV antenna was like pretty sharp. So he invited me to try next. And I was like, well, what the heck? One of my like basically chaperones is here. One of them still around and kicking. And so I tried and I realized it really isn't my thing because I'm interested in power play. Mm-hmm. And in that psychological dynamic, I'm not a masochist. I don't enjoy pain. And so I was like, yeah, you can step away with that antenna thing. That's not fun. And I wasn't feeling anything exciting or arousing. Mm-hmm. And so I was just like, okay, well, thank you. I appreciate you. You're trying. Like, let's, you can do her now if you like.
And was there disappointment in yourself? Like, what did you feel in that moment? Like, were you feeling like, you know, like you were supposed to react in a certain way, or were you were okay with the fact that you just, it was whatever it was? Like, what, was there any stuff going on in your brain around that?
Yeah, well, I think I tried it because I was like, I'm curious whether or not this dynamic can feel sexy and arousing to me, right? Like, I don't know, and I'm open to it being so. And also, she had a freaking time of her life, right? The person before me looked hella happy, and I was like, I want to be hella happy like that. But I just realized it's okay with me that it wasn't for me. I know what I like. I have a good sense at this point of what it is that turns me on versus, and it changes and it shifts, right? That happens always. But I was like, okay, that's not it. Like, publicly being hit by someone you don't know with no pretense whatsoever is not your thing. Chill.
Right on. Okay, so what happens now? What goes on?
So then I get approached by a tall, thin couple who are like, oh, can we flog you next? And I was like, no, I'm good, actually. I just learned that doesn't do it for me. But then I saw this wicked hot dominatrix. I mean, she was so sexy, and she was paddling, so like using a paddle on a submissive, and I was like, I want her. I was like, her energy is so sexy, so sensual. Like, the way that she's doing this feels connected. And I was like, I don't know if they know each other. And I was just like, I'm going to wait around to see if I can get her attention and like she and I can connect. I mean, the rest of the night, I was obsessed with this woman, like following her around my eyes, but the submissive, whether or not she knew her, was really clingy. And the aftercare, so like the post spanking part of this person's experience, like she just attached herself to the dominatrix and she wouldn't leave her side. And I felt like it'd be rude to go up and be like, I want to go, take me next, like ditch her. She was so hot. Oh my God, she was so hot. She was so beautiful, just like exuding this sensual sexual energy. And I was like, I think I can get anywhere with this person. Like, I tried to look her up. I had to Google her.
Okay, so
that didn't happen. Like, that woman, like that sub did not leave her side. And I am not a late night person. So like when 1 a.m. came around, and like I feel like the sub knew that I was trying to like get in. Like, she literally was like meowing and attached to this woman. And I was like, at 1, I was like, my friend's still in subspace. I think I'm done. But before I left, I was approached by another couple, and they were the other youngest people in the room. So they were probably just around 28, 30. And they said, we would be interested in having a threesome with you. And I was like, ooh, I've never done that before. And I'm not particularly interested overall in threesomes, but I also had finally found confidence in my queer identity, but had yet to have experience with anyone outside of a cis man. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can have sex with her through this interaction. And I can feel like ethical about it, right? I'm not like testing my queerness on someone, like I'm being invited to a threesome. And so I was super, super psyched. And that ends up going in another direction, but it did end up leading to my first experience with a woman, which helped me feel more confident in that as well.
So overall, was there anything else that happened in that experience of I'm kind of interested to hear about the threesome. So we'll get to that in a moment. But anything else about being at the party, and what did you learn? Like, what would you say that you really learned about going and having that experience?
I would say I definitely learned that I was right to like connect myself with other folks and not go alone as a like petite femme presenting and type person. Like there were definitely some folks who were creepy. And I don't remember what their like whether or not they allowed single men in or what have you. But like the one who we had done the remote guy was totally fine. He was like a lovely human being. But like several other men approached us and we were like, go away, right? And having to like put strict boundaries and people like having to support those boundaries by being physically present behind us without even knowing us to ensure that this person would leave us alone. So if you have the money, go to a not low cost budget type film party. But if you don't have the money, like come with an entourage of some sort that can check in on you and make sure. Like right when she went into subspace, we kept constant eye on her because she wasn't in a state of mind to be consenting. And so I think that like stuck with me. Also, like I saw a much older person who was like all in leather, who probably identified as a sub-slave. So slave was like another level of submissiveness. And they were like licking someone's boot. And I was just like, oh my God, that boot has probably been outside. Like we live in New York City. Like you are consuming like human animal feces and like rat piss right now. I was just like, that's not healthy. So like the kinds of things that go through my mind. And there's such a wide range of kinks and fetishes and activities that you can engage in, and very different levels of safety and like what is and isn't safe, and whether you're a germaphobe. And I'm not a germaphobe, I think, but like that to me, I was like, wow, that's pretty gross. And it's fine, lick all your boots, but I was like, New York City streets, you can get all sorts of things off those. I'd want to bring clean boots. If I was that kind of person, I'd like bring my sub some nice clean boots so that when they licked, they didn't lick New York City streets.
Nice. And how did you define the rest of your sexual experiences? Like in that moment, how did that define how you continued your exploration and who you became as a sexual being?
I don't know if it was defining so much as just like a notch on the journey. I knew what I liked already. It still took many years for me to find a partner with whom I had a good trusting connection to do it in a more legitimate way, right? Like folks will play around with you, but there's a difference between being willing to engage in certain sex acts and actually being in that power dynamic and that switch and engaging that way. And it's like right now I'm in a 24-hour dom sub relationship that's like really chill, and probably no one in the outside world would consider it that or recognize it as such. But it works really well for us, and we're enjoying it very much. And so it was just like, this was part of my journey of finding that part of me and feeling good about it, and not having it steeped in shame.
Beautiful. Okay, so tell me about the threesome.
Sure. So, oh man, that was so disappointed. So she breaks up with him, I think, soon after this party. And so we're messaging, and I was like, hold up, like the reason I'm talking to you is because of her. So we're gonna need to figure out. So I had sex with the man a couple of times, but I was like, I'm not actually here for you. Like I was here for her. So you're going to need to find me a replacement woman if you would like to have sex with me. Because like, you're fine, right? I'm orgasming, but like, there's nothing like particularly excited about this dynamic. Like you literally were only attracted to me because you came with a woman. And so he delivered, he found a couple, and we had sex with the woman. And the intention was like, if we enjoyed it, we would then bring in her boyfriend as well. And I had like, she was a great person to first have sex with, because like I have yet to meet someone like her again. I think I gave her like 3 or 4 orgasms, which was like, I felt great, right? Because it's my first time with a vulva, and I'm just making that vulva go great. But and this is like off, but I come from a very diverse and mixed community, and I'm not used to being around like homogeneous groups. And we all have, they were both white and I'm white presenting. And I had complimented her skirt right before she took it off, and she made a comment about cultural appropriation. I'm like, cultural appropriation. And I like I shut down, my body shut, like I was no longer aroused from that point afterwards. And I was just like so hyper aware that I was about to have sex with 2 white people. And I, in general, haven't had sex with many white people just because it's not who's in my groups. And so when I was like, I'm having sex with 2 white people, I'm like, one of them just like, oh, cultural appropriation. So I was excited that I was able to get her off multiple times, but like I actually got off 0 times during that interaction because I was so disconnected. And so like, this is probably like, this is just, it's a different cultural expectation. It's a different, what have you. And other things like that happened as well. But yeah, so overall I was like, glad that I got to do that, have that experience, because then I was able to move on and feel like now you can date women and not feel like you're testing yourself on them. But I don't think he and I hooked up again. And right, like I was like, I'm done. I made a point to be like, if I don't really like you as a person and I don't feel like our values align, then I will no longer be having sex with these folks. And like, that was a turning point actually for me in my sex life.
Well, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Because that cultural, also, and I had asked him who he was voting for. This is around Trump's election. And he didn't know. And I was like, I almost got up. I was like, I mean, I didn't do anything else after that, but like, I was like, oh, you can't not know.
So what would you say to yourself, what you know now, back then? What would be the one thing that you would have told yourself differently, that you might have done differently?
I think with the sex party, I handled it in a way that I'm comfortable with. I'm happy with what I tried. I'm happy with what I chose not to try in that space. I would say that I think it would have been great to have come to the conclusion that I should like the people that I have sex with as early as possible, as opposed to just, I was like in a hookup state of mind. Mm-hmm. And I didn't normally do one-night stands, but I would just hook up with folks for a couple of months at a time so that we would know each other's body and the sex would be pleasurable, but I wouldn't get too connected. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's what I would have done differently, that I would have continued what I was doing, like hooking up consistently with people for a couple of months and then cutting off, but that I should like them as human beings overall, and that I would want them to be in my friend groups, mm-hmm. rather than just being like, you look like a convenient fuck.
Nice. Okay, so tell us how people can spend more time with you and all the brilliant things that you do. Tell us all about that.
So my persona is Yael the Sex Geek, right? Like that's how you can find me on Insta, on Facebook, on Twitter. If you think you might want to hear more of my stories and how that might relate to your own, I have a book called An Intro Guide to a Sex Positive You, Lessons, Tales, and Tips, where I interweave my narratives into how I present information, which people have said makes it feel like they're talking to their best friend and makes them feel seen and validated. I am starting an online course soon, Sex Positive You. It'll be at sexpositiveyou.com. There's a theme going on in my things.
That's good. That's good branding. It's good to have themes.
Do coaching. I do curriculum. I do workshops. I do a lot around, most of my work is in validation. I have a company dedicated to identities, representation, and community, because it took me so long to feel confident as a queer woman, to feel confident as a Latina who looks the way that I do, which is totally normal. Lots of us look this way, but you wouldn't know it from TV representation. Mm-hmm. And so I do a lot of work in helping people find their communities, finding confidence, like finding my kinky self, all these things. And so I do a lot of identity work in addition for my coaching.
Nice. All right. It's wonderful. Anything else you want to say to our audience while you have their undivided attention?
If you check out the Diverse Bodies Project, we have a project dedicated to redefining beauty and representing all the different ways that we show up in the nude. And so we interview folks and we take pictures of them while interviewing them while they're naked. And it really is a beautiful project. And so we encourage people to connect. Our next phase will invite people from all over the world to contribute. Right now it was only done in New York City, but we will be growing that.
Pick me! Pick me!
It's such a beautiful and fun project. The things that people share, the adorableness in the images. We really wanted to show all the emotions that folks have and all their stories, and not just like, here's a body, it's different from this body, right?
So say that again.
Diverse Bodies Project.
Okay. And we'll see if we can make sure that that gets in the show notes, so that people can, click easy peasy, so that they can, because we all like easy, let's be honest. So thank you for being on the show, and thanks for sharing your adventure, and thanks for leaning in with me. You're so delightful.
Thank you. I enjoyed this. Your questions are great.
And so all the audience, go hang out at tickle.life. Go hang out with our awesome guests. Go on the adventure with all of us, and have a juicy day. Bye-bye. Mwah!